Hi guys, it's me, Ben Shapiro, and we're going to be going live here in a second. I'm going to have some guests on my show. One of my great friends, Mr. Jordan Peterson, best-selling author, and he's also a good friend of my wife, who's a doctor. Another guest we'll be having is Mr. Bernie Sanders himself, as well as AOC. And for our last surprise, my sister will be singing a classical aria. My sister will be on the show singing opera, and I might be playing my violin. The world's tiniest violin. But anyways, we're going to get the show started. If you want to find us on Discord and, send us some questions, I'm Ben Shapiro, and this is the Daily Tampon. All right, for our first guest, my great friend and best-selling author, who is a psychologist. And Jordan Peterson is going to be talking about some of the cultural schematics that the left uses to cancel the right. Mr. Jordan Peterson. All right. I think ultimately cancel culture, it's a product in the postmodern world because men are becoming more thoughtless and lackadaisical, and we find that more of the women rising up as independent but equals, and they want to be seen as independent but equals. And now suddenly men are on trial. Now it's women who are taking care of everything from the household and the finances, their husband, and the kids. And women are also taught to look and to act a certain way to keep up after things. And, whatever happened to there being no value in just raising a kid in the nuclear family. The man is taking charge and being strong and taking care of his family. And, now we see the traditional family dichotomy being torn apart. And I think that's one of the reasons that cancel culture can so easily, infest into the minds, not only these young children, but, of the man and the woman. Because now they're no longer a team, but they're seen as separate competitors. This is the way that the culture's been progressing. And, it's quite shocking how very few people are taking accountability and just going out and doing whatever they want and, throwing all caution to the wind. That's because they're being taught collective learning in schools. And, that's why I wrote a diatribe against communism in favor of Western postmodern individualism. The brainwashing techniques are a curriculum against individual power and thought. And this is happening in our school. The Archipelago Gulag talks about how gender, sex, and individualism were prone to mere provocation, and that was heavily due to the Communist Party. And, Hitler, he was a hell of a guy, He got people riled up. He was, one of the greatest public speakers of all time. He convinced people through sheer charismatic passion. And I think that's a lot of what's happening, today with brainwashing and cancel culture. To think individually is becoming less and less. And if we look back on Nazi Germany, we can see that a lot of people were doing things they didn't really want to do out of fear. Otherwise, you could get killed. Your life was at stake. And I think, that's happening a lot with cancel culture today. To think individually can sometimes, threaten your job or threaten your reputation. We have no excuse for that now. No one gets killed for standing outside of a box. But we're headed in a similar direction to what Karl Marx talks about in the Communist Manifesto. People no longer want individualism and power. They want to be taken care of, even if it means being treated the same. And that's when people lose their sense of purpose. We want to be treated like the man. We want to feel special. So we work as hard as we can. But when we're all treated the same and mommy and daddy takes care of you, there's no incentive to learn. And, especially I think people are finding less of a purpose-driven life. And they feel as if they have nothing else except to rely on their indulgences, Men have a hard time grasping, let alone admitting their weaknesses. And I think this goes for culture. In there I talk about some of these topics, and I think a lot of people have a hard time, recognizing their weaknesses. And I think that's why we see things like cancel culture. It's easier to cancel somebody rather than to, look inside yourself and evaluate yourself and your flaws. It's easier to cancel other people. And, a lot of people would argue, well, easier said than done. A lot of people ask me, how do I turn my life around here? And, to that I say, well, how do you turn your life around? What would that look like to you? And I say, grab yourself by the bootstraps. I think in the Bible it says, wipe the dirt out of your eye before acknowledging that your neighbor has a stick in his. I think I should know this. I do a course on the Bible. So ultimately, I think that we need to be taking more self-accountability. Great point that you bring up, Jordan. It's about, people losing their incentive and their cultural identity. If you have no ground to stand on, when somebody comes for your ground, you don't really care if they take away your ground. I believe, Jordan, one of the reasons that because censorship and cancel culture, try to slam the nuclear family and ruin traditional values. So we're seeing fornication and premarital sex and even infidelity. And the left tends to push these ideas, which, is why we tend to see the devaluing of the nuclear family. And people with, whose moral compass is flip-flopped. Bernie, this would be a really interesting talking point to, get your thoughts on, because you're a family man yourself, but you are tied quite tightly to these ideological ideals.
Right, thank you, Mr. Shapiro. Let me be clear. These are very unprecedented times. We can't be comparing these unprecedented times to the Gulag.
You could
Mr. Peterson, you could joke and laugh
outside
all
of
you
a
want
box.
About, being in a box. The reason that I'm in a box is
Communist
to
Party.
protect myself from the DNC and the Republican Party. Many people in our grassroots movement are individuals whose voices are not being heard, and because the system is rigged to reward billionaires. People are individuals and want the same things: happiness, dignity, and their right to live and afford health care. Now, you tell me, if you have the audacity, Mr. Peterson, that these people aren't working hard when they are working 50 hours a week, working for $8.50 an hour, trying to provide for their families. They have all the purpose, if not more, to continue going on, even if they can't, because because they're trying to get ahead in these unprecedented times. It is our individual right to health care. It is our individual right not to be kicked out of our homes or apartments due to the crisis that was of no fault of their own. You tell me that these people are provoking communism, that these people aren't working hard when the laissez-faire free market capitalism is no longer free or fair. The system is corrupted by big business, lobbyists, and the government, and the bailouts should have, let me repeat, should have gone to people who needed it, instead of bailing out big corporations and not excusing rent for those on welfare. These are good, honest people, and we don't need you to tell us who they are or what they want, Mr. Peterson and Mr. Shapiro. Frankly, this is unprecedented, and we need unprecedented change.
We're gonna take a little break here.
Right, thank you, Mr.
We're gonna
Shapiro.
talk to AOC. We have her. Switch over to her camera.
I agree with Bernie, and that is why I pledge my support at the DNC for Senator Bernie Sanders for the presidential nominee. Even though Joe Biden is running, I'm going to stand out here and tell you all I am voting for Bernie Sanders. There is a third-party option, and we as a democratic society should feel we are able to exercise that choice. And by the way, Mr. Shapiro, on the way into this council meeting, I saw you smirking while you were walking up the stairs.
Wait, I'm not allowed to make gestures and move my face?
Saying you're not.
See, this is exactly the type of censorship we're talking about.
No, I'm not saying you aren't constitutionally allowed to smirk at me or anybody else, Mr. Shapiro. I'm merely asking you why you did it when you saw me walking up the stairs, because you also, said, God help us.
I'm not really sure what you're referring to, and quite frankly, I don't see why that's relevant to what we're talking about or any of your business, to be quite honest.
Well, see, Ben, here in America, you have the freedom to snicker, but I also have the freedom to call you out and ask you why. God help us what? God help us
really
what?
Sure, actually.
So why did you say, God help us?
I don't have to tell you that, or who my God is, and that's my freedom. Maybe it had nothing to do with you, and I don't really care about your feelings.
Okay, so you don't care about my feelings as a woman.
Neither do
then
facts.
You clearly would be the type of person to snicker and talk shit thinking I wasn't looking. But I do see you're a man of faith, and no, you don't have to tell me, but now I'm going to assume it was about me.
I don't have to tell you that, or who my God is, and that's my freedom. Yes, I am an Orthodox Jew, and my wife is a doctor.
Okay, we're getting way off topic here.
Christ was a Jewish figure. He's a bit of an iconoclast thinker. He's representing the minorities. In my biblical deconstruction talks in quite I discuss traditional versus non-traditional comparisons with Abraham, Luke, Jacob, John,
we're getting
Peter.
way off topic here. Ben, last time, answer the question.
Not really sure what you're referring to.
Ben,
Alexandria,
Ben,
maybe it had nothing to do with you? It is not out of my
Ben,
religious code to wear this, and we're not here to discuss it.
Oh,
We're not
okay.
here to sit and discuss my bloodline.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Shapiro, I am of Jewish descent as well. I don't see how any of this has anything to do, quite frankly, with anything, including the part about your wife. I see you have a
I'm not
yarmulke,
really
or is that a kippah of some kind?
No, well, I don't have to tell you that. Or,
Well, you wear it all the time. You surely must know what it is, Mr. Shapiro.
yes, as you can see, I am an Orthodox Jew. My wife is a Jew, and my wife is a doctor.
Okay, Ben,
My wife is a Jew. She converted for me, even though I can't get her wet.
I find it absolutely despicable that you're using this shtick to promote the ideas that you are, Mr. Shapiro, and quite frankly...
And quite frankly, Mr. Sanders, it's not breaking the law, unlike the looters that you are supporting. And it's not even outside of my religious code to wear this, and we're not here to sit and discuss my bloodline.
Jesus was technically only a Jew through his father, Joseph. If the mother...
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Shapiro,
Well, actually, I merely wear this to cover up my bald spot.
Right, thank you, Mr. Shapiro.
Thank you so much, Jordan Peterson. I enjoyed a lot of the books and a lot of the things you had to say. It was a lot of fun, me and you, on Joe Rogan's show. And, I look forward to having you on again. And now we're gonna have a very special guest, my sister Abigail Shapiro. She's a beautiful singer, and she recently started her own very successful YouTube channel.
Thank you so much for having me.
Wow, yeah. That was quite a beautiful intro from my sister there, Abigail Shapiro. Abby, I see your YouTube's, doing really well in the algorithm. Why don't you tell us a little bit about why you chose the name Classically Abbie?
I'm classically trained. Yes, I'm classically trained. I'm classically trained. I went to school to study opera, classically trained vocalist. And, I'm new here on YouTube.
Yes, yeah, you are classically trained. You are a classically trained opera singer. And she has a very beautiful voice, guys, if you want to check it out. And so far, how's your experience on YouTube? Or, how has it been for you? Are you finding that there's a lot of women that are receptive to the conservative culture here on YouTube?
Yes, totally. So far it's been really fun. I've literally bought up all the ad space, and it's pretty much just me and Trump advertising now, which I think is hopeful for the future. But yeah, I've had so many people find my channel through all the ads I bought up.
All right, now Abigail, you talk a lot about women who should be dressing more conservatively.
I think one of the videos I started to advertise was how to dress like a conservative woman.
Now, why is that?
Well, I think to your point of cancel culture, I think a lot of these people are getting canceled, and when women dress to give off a certain impression, almost as if they're asking for it, but they put themselves in these situations, and then they blame the other party for them creating the situation. So ultimately, I think if women dressed more conservatively, things like the Me Too movement and Believe All Women, which I find quite frankly disgusting and false, would no longer really exist. I think a lot of these women are participating in cancel culture by dressing in a certain way and then trying to say that they weren't asking for it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's exactly what, a lot of us NPC incel conservatives really root for and try to portray in modern conservative culture.
And, the reason I put that out is because we're seeing, so many girls feel pressured into Instagram culture and things like Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. And I feel like women should be dressing more conservatively and keeping that for a special man that deserves that. A man that loves you for your mind, your opinions, and the way you get along. And for your conservative values and not just your body. You want to be taken seriously, and I feel like a lot of the time these girls are not taken seriously. I want to be taken seriously, which is why I'm dressed conservatively. I want to be seen for my thoughts, my ideas. And yes, I'll wear a nice dress when I go out, but for the most part, I just want to put a message out there that women do not have to be doing this. And it's potentially problematic for them if they want to be taken seriously in a career. So that's why I'm dressed conservatively. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight all the ramparts we watched. Why am I sounding like Celine Dion? Parts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the
Oh my god, that totally took the air capacity right out of me. Yeah, that's a lot of diaphragm right there. So I see on YouTube that you get a lot of comments about that you use too much vibrato. As somebody who's classically trained myself, I know that vibrato is a fundamental aspect of classical music. So what are your thoughts on that? Abbie. 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 Abbie, are you okay?
Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I was so, that took a lot out of me. Since I got married, I haven't been, performing as much. And since I started up this YouTube channel, I haven't been performing as much. And I'm also wearing a girdle. It's definitely a bit of a challenge, but, I hope that you enjoyed it. And as far as my vibrato goes, I think my vibrato is perfectly fine. So thanks for everybody's input in the comments on YouTube. But I think my vibrato is perfectly fine. I'm classically trained. I'm classically Abbie. I think I would know.
All right, well, Abbie, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you to all our guests, Ocasio-Cortez, Mr. Bernie Sanders, and Mr. Jordan Peterson himself. This has been the Daily Tampon. I'm Ben Shapiro. If you want us to keep doing this show, leave a comment, subscribe. And thank you for watching. Hit subscribe if you like it, and feel free to send us a comment over in the Discord. All right, Abbie. So why don't you talk about some of your, Abbie, I see your YouTube. Why do I sound like Jordan Peterson? I'm stuck on Jordan. Jesus technically only was a Jew through his father, Joseph. I'm not really sure. Okay. My wife is a Jew. My wife is also a doctor, and I am an Orthodox Jew. Well, I don't have to tell you that. I don't see why that's relevant to what we're talking about. And my wife is also a doctor.